5-4 it finishes to Manchester United in extra time. They advanced 7-6 on aggregate and march on to the semi-finals. Nedum Anua was watching this for us as well. We'll get word from you in a moment, Nedum. Let's start with you, Stevie. Where do we even start after what we've just seen?
I mean, to figure out what we've just seen, I mean, we've seen the good, the bad and the absolutely unbelievable from United. I mean, for 70 minutes, they were, in my mind, complete control of this game. 2 goals ahead, at home, and then all of a sudden, from nowhere, they lose a goal, and then they panic. Extra time comes. From nowhere, again, Lyon are 2 ahead. The game's done. But yet United, as bad as they can be, and as inconsistent as they can be, somehow find the wherewithal and the desire and the guts and the heart and everything else to come back from 2-goal deficit in extra time. Now, yes, you're up against 10 men, but still, to be 2 down in extra time and score 3 goals in the space of, what, 5 minutes? I mean, it was cuckoo, but you've got to give credit to United. Yes, Lyon, defensively, I said it in the highlight, they backed off, they never closed the ball for pretty much the 3 goals, and they paid the price big time. But yeah, credit to United, great heart.
What does it do for them, Shaka? Oh, I see your face a little bit grimacing.
Well, right now, it feels like a whole lot more than it actually is, in truth. You're 2 down, going out of a competition in which you've got all your eggs in this basket, and you somehow find a way back. You thought you were out, then you think, okay, maybe we're heading to penalties, and then Harry Maguire pops up, and you win it, albeit after 120 minutes. But the thing for me is, and while, yes, we've kind of all been there where you get a last-minute equaliser or winner, and you understand how that changes everything about the feel of the game, you're in total control against Lyon, a team sitting, what, 4th or 5th in Ligue 1. And while you're in no great position yourself in the Premier League, you get a result on the road, you come back to Old Trafford to defend that. That result you got was despite goalkeeping errors. You're in total command of the game. Lyon offered little up until probably, what, the hour mark. And see that out. You know, you're asking a professional team to do a professional job. And I thought Manchester United just were not able to do that. Even when Lyon got the first goal, that's when, and again, the complaint around Manchester United, you're looking for some kind of leadership. You're looking just to settle the game down. You're at home, take control. And I thought they weren't able to do that. But to Stevie's point, when you find yourself back, all of a sudden, you somehow are able to get 3 goals in the space of 5 minutes, and it feels like an awful lot. And all of a sudden now, you've got a new lease on life, in a competition in which is the be-all and end-all for this season.
Yeah, it was quite the ride, Nedum. What's your biggest takeaway from the United perspective?
The biggest, I'm not sure. I think everything is kind of the same. But one thing I would say is that feeling that they had at the end of the game, being able to come back and score 2 goals in the space of a minute in front of 70,000 people. I think for anyone that's played football before, that is euphoric. That's as good as it feels. But as we look back at the previous 2 hours, oh my goodness. I'll be honest, at the first half when it's 2-0 to United, I'm thinking they're playing professionally. And the talk is, you know, they did a good job. They did what they needed to do. They've been good in Europe overall. Credit to them. Then so I'm thinking the game's over. Then it's 2-2. I'm like, okay, well, this is weird. But then Lyon go down to 10. Okay, so the game's over then because United's going to control the game. Oh, but now United are 2 goals down against 10 players whilst playing at home. This game is chaotic. I think the tie itself, the fact that, you know, United are going through after winning 7-6 on aggregate. I think if you wanted a team to be strong, to be robust and tough to play against, I don't think either side really offered up that sort of mentality in this game. But in reality, as I say, fair play to them for continuing to keep going. Yes, there'll be lots of criticism that will come with it, but the fact is they're in the next round and they are 3 games away from lifting a European trophy. So in reality, there are tons of negatives, but the biggest positives is the fact that they found a way. And for those fans that were there, the players that, you know, shared that moment as well, maybe this will give them a boost, and hopefully they don't have to look back at sort of any video analysis in the coming days about that game, because I don't think it would look too good, to be honest.
You can only imagine that boost in the dressing room right now, and the belief that they're going to have that they can go all the way now after a night like that.
Yeah.
I just put the brakes on a little bit.
No?
Well, the problem United have is that all of the things you just said is absolutely 100%. Euphoric, the boost, the whole thing. Unfortunately for Man United, they're going to have to play another game of football again. And when they start playing, they'll realise that euphoric feeling has disappeared and now we're back to normal. I mean, that's the only thing we know. We know that between now and the end of the season, whether United go on to win the Europa League or not, we're going to be talking about them, and we're going to be talking about periods in a game where you're scratching your head thinking, is this Man United? So, yeah, this is going to be a lovely few days for everybody connected with United. But as I said, the next time they step on the field and they start producing what we've been seeing for the last goodness knows how long, that euphoria all disappears very, very quickly.
And while that's true, let's be honest, the league, I don't think Manchester United as a team, certainly as a squad, are that concerned with the league anymore. They're not going to go down.
And that's what's wrong.
They're not even going to finish top half of the table. So therefore, you can come to Stevie's point. You can come back down, and it doesn't really have much of an effect or impact on the complexion of your season in total. It's all about the Europa League. And to Nedum's point, he's absolutely right. While we could sit here and be critical of moments in the game, and I'm sure Amorim will sit with his squad once he does settles and talk through a lot of those points, you're in the hat. You're in the next round. And I am a firm believer in Lady Luck playing a part in every success. And I think you can look back on every cup win, every title win, whatever it is, and there are moments in there that it just didn't seem like it was going to happen. And then there's just something just sparked, something just happened, something just fell your way. Lady Luck was on your side. And maybe this is Manchester United's. And maybe that's their takeaway. That while we relied on Lady Luck today against Lyon in the second leg, we have to be better than that going forward. That has to be the message. But, and again, I'll echo exactly what Nedum said, you're still in the hat. You've got 3 more games to go to win this Europa League. That's the big takeaway from tonight. The rest, we'll talk about that in the weeks to come.
And I suppose to your point about the Lady Luck as well, Nedum, that second yellow for Corentin Tolisso did play into Manchester United's favour tonight.
Yeah, it certainly did. I think, obviously, when we watch games of football, we see yellow cards be given for that type of thing. But when it's the second yellow, and ultimately for Tolisso, like, what is he supposed to do? You know, you think about the array of different things you can do to get a yellow card, like speaking ill to a referee, going in for a really strong tackle, but then somebody, like, just clips you. You clip somebody completely by accident, and that's it. You're a disgrace. You have to leave the field. It's a shame for him. It's a shame for the game. And, you know, he's playing well for them as well. But as we kind of saw, I guess they only needed 10 players to get a couple more goals anyway. But yeah, it's a shame that is the way that we do perceive the game. And I'd love to see that changed in the future. And it just felt like, you know, such a big moment that came from something that was so slight that I'd be more than happy to not see yellow cards for that type of thing.
Next up, Athletic, who are on course to play the final in their home ground. Obviously, they got what they needed tonight in a win. That is a tricky game for them.
I think it will be. Bilbao have shown themselves to be a good team, and they did against Rangers, and far more complete. I think far more balanced. And you cannot have Manchester United cannot have the up and down roller coaster. Is that 120 plus 210 minutes that they did against Lyon, against a team like Athletic Bilbao. They have far too many tools up front, and the Williams brothers, they're just too good a team, playing with too much confidence. And they as well come into this one, given with the final being at home, feeling that destiny's on their side, but understanding that has to be earned. It's a tough one. I don't think there's a tougher team left in the competition than Athletic Bilbao.
Spurs win this one. They advance 2-1 on aggregate. They are through to their first European semi-final in 6 years. Talk about easing the pressure on a side. We're seeing it here with Spurs as well, Nedum.
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And I think what I really enjoyed about the Spurs performance, especially in that second half, is that they were like backs against the wall. And I think for the criticism that they've received in the last year, 2 years, they're too open. They don't defend well, you know. And obviously there are always times when mistakes will be made. But to limit Frankfurt to the sort of chances that they had, is credit to them. Everybody was putting their body on the line. They were finding times where they knew they had to go up the pitch. They weren't just trying to play it short. They were trying to find people that would take the ball up the pitch, like Kulusevski having to come on. You know, for Maddison, obviously that was a shame for Maddison, but it made a big difference. Here's a ball carrier, but then the decision-making was good. They did everything that they could to try and stifle the attack of the opposition, which again is something that we have not really seen from them throughout long periods this season. So it was a great away performance in Europe, holding on to a lead. And again, ask yourself, did you expect that from Spurs? I'll be honest, I didn't. I think lots of other people didn't as well. But I think they're very deserving of being in the next round. And as I say, for them to be able to do it the hard way by winning away from home, you know, credit to them. And why would the belief not be high for them? Because at the end of the game, you saw those scenes, people jumping on the manager, people hugging each other. That means everything to them. So it's very easy for us to write them off, but they believe in each other, and that's what matters.
And Nathan's right, because it wasn't the easiest of places to go. It's a team with recent history in this tournament. It's a team that's doing well in the Bundesliga. This was always going to be a tough task for them on paper.
Yeah, but it kind of gives me a strange taste in my mouth, because in some ways you have to criticise, particularly the manager, Postecoglou, because we have all sat here for how long and spoken about they have to change the way they play. They can't have the full-backs being the ones on the end of crosses in the opposition's penalty box, because that's what we've been watching even more this season than previously. But yet they turn around and they put in a performance like this, and you're scratching your head going, why can't you do that in the Premier League when you need to do it? Yes, we love to watch you play an open attacking football, but when things are not going your way, when you've got injuries, you're up against it, then solidify everything. Stop the bleeding, stop the rot. Do exactly what you did tonight, where you had everybody behind the ball, nobody running 40 yards to maybe get a pass that was never going to arrive and leave a big hole. There was none of that. And this is where the praise comes in. It's a great performance. I mean, really, I don't think Stuttgart deserved to score any goals tonight.
It's a good job because they weren't playing there tonight.
Frankfurt, I beg your pardon.
Stuttgart definitely didn't deserve to score.
You got to praise them for the way they won and they dug in and they defended. But then you scratch your head and go, why is it taking you this long to do that? It don't make any sense to me.
Do you feel the same way, Shaq?
I do. I think, well, clearly the story here is Ange Postecoglou. I mean, I'll be honest, I think I'm like Nadam. I didn't see Spurs winning this in a month of Sundays. I really didn't. And I thought all the conversation would be, well, what happens tomorrow? Or exactly how much longer does Postecoglou have? Because let's be honest, now that they're out of this competition, he's out of a job. But it easily was Spurs' most balanced performance that we've seen for quite some time, if not this season. And again, against decent opposition. Frankfurt are no pushovers. Just look at the Bundesliga table to remind yourself of that. But they produce this performance. And, okay, the goal does come from the penalty spot. I thought absolutely it was a penalty. But then just kind of the professional performance that we were talking about that maybe Manchester United lacked when they were 2 up, you saw that from Spurs. A professional performance that you could argue, again, you have not seen for quite some time from Tottenham Hotspur. So you then question again, is it just about that Spurs realize I don't know what their ambition is in the league anymore, but they're not going down, they're not going to even finish in the top half of the table. All the eggs are in this basket again, and if that is the focus, never mind what happens on a Saturday or a Sunday in the league, we're all concerned about our Thursday night games, and that's the only thing that matters, because that was a performance of a team that said it mattered.
I'm sure it won't matter to the higher-ups and Daniel Levy, but you did see at the end of that game as well, the players celebrating with Postecoglou himself and celebrating with his coaching staff, which does show that he matters to them.
It does. It also shows that everybody understands the pressure. Everybody's aware of the conversations that are being had, whether they're being had upstairs in the Spurs Stadium or just around desks like these. They are all aware of it, aware of what's being said, and aware of the consequences of this competition. And it showed, and credit to them, because if that's you need that. If Spurs, and while we're touching distance of winning the Europa League, they need to have that every Thursday night in this competition if they are to win those next 3 games.
Nadem?
Yeah, what I would say, I saw those scenes, and I want to believe in them. I really do. But I think Stevie, Shaka, the people that have been on the show who've played, when you've had a good win, I think you'll hug anybody. So let's not overreact to it just that much, because as far as it goes, this is a great moment. We're all here. Somebody's hugging me. Who is it? Oh, it's the manager. Okay, great. Yeah, everything's fantastic. But for them, they put the work in, and ultimately, whether they believe in the manager or they don't, they believed in each other, and they believe that there's a chance for them to win a trophy here. So credit to them for that performance, and hopefully for their sake, they can have more of that between now and the end of the season.
Oh, everyone gets a hug when you win it. Oh, you've disappointed me now. I wonder what poor Ian Dark thought of that as well. He didn't play, and I wonder if he's been having the wool pulled over his eyes all these years as well. He can always have hugs, can Uncle Ian. He'll be on the show tomorrow. Make sure you join us. Oh, the reaction in Madrid this morning from Diario AS. It was just a dream. Obviously, it's the morning after the night before in Madrid, and there was no famous remontada at the Santiago Bernabeu, no famous comeback from Real Madrid. Nadem's still with us. Alex Kirkland joining us as well. I feel, Alex, as though the whole of the football world were thinking, I know they probably shouldn't, but they just might come back here. We'd seen it in the papers the day before. If anyone can, it's Real Madrid who can, and yet they didn't. Has there been a feeling of surprise in Madrid? What's the reaction been?
Some surprise, yeah, Kate, and disappointment. And the overall feeling for me, I have to say, being there last night, was it felt a bit like kind of the end of the road for this team. Now, of course, the reality is that it's not, because there's still a lot to fight for this season. They've got the Copa del Rey final next week. They've got the La Liga title race as well. You've got the Club World Cup at the end of the season. But it did feel a bit like the end of something. And you're right, there was so much talk about the remontada, about the comeback. That was what the build-up was all about. But when you think about it, it was all kind of based on intangible things, on the history and the tradition, and when it's happened before with previous teams on previous nights, that the magic, the aura of the Bernabeu, all of that was what the talk was about. But when you actually looked at kind of the team and their form and the way they're playing and the way the first leg went, more tangible things, there wasn't a lot of evidence that suggested that the comeback was really on. And certainly being there during the game, it never, I mean, the atmosphere was great, certainly pre-match and when the game kicked off, and when Courtois saved that penalty, and when Madrid got that penalty that was eventually overturned, the atmosphere was really good. But in terms of the game, it never felt like the comeback was ever on. A lot of that is down to Arsenal and how well they managed the game, I thought, but also that Madrid just weren't successfully able to sort of consistently create good enough chances. Raya in goal actually had a very quiet night. And like I say, at no point in that game, even when Vinicius scored, which of course came after Arsenal had already gone ahead, it never felt like the comeback was coming. And by the end, there were a lot of whistles from the fans. There were whistles for Mbappe when he went off injured. And like I say, yes, surprise, yes, disappointment, but also I think an acceptance that we've seen all the way through this season that this team hasn't quite had it.
Hasn't quite had it. And what is the talk on Carlo Ancelotti this morning in Madrid then, Alex?
Yeah, interesting today. We got this report which came out of the UK from Sky Sports about Ancelotti leaving potentially after the Copa del Rey final next week. Now, that is not the information that we've got here. That's not what people close to Carlo Ancelotti are saying here. It would be a surprise if anything like that happened, if he was to leave before the end of the season, because like I say, there's also a La Liga title race. There's 4 points between Madrid and Barca in the title race. Now, of course, anything can happen here. And if Madrid were to suffer a heavy cup final defeat to Barcelona, another embarrassing defeat to Barcelona, there've been 2 already this season, that could change things, of course. But right now, our information is not that any sort of final decision has been made, and certainly not one that would come so soon. But it does feel like, and listening to Ancelotti talk last night post-match, it does feel like this might well be the end for him. The only question, the difficult question, actually, unusually this season, is when that might come, because the Club World Cup does complicate things, I think, because the end of the season kind of isn't the end of the season this time, because you've then got the Club World Cup in June and July. If you are going to bring in a new manager, when do you do that? Do you do it before the Club World Cup or after? But it does, unless something extraordinary happens and Madrid win the league, win the cup, with the way the season's gone, with what happened in the Champions League, it feels like this might be the end for Ancelotti. In terms of who comes next, we all know who the favourite is. We all know who the club's preferred candidate is. It's been the case for a long time. It's Xabi Alonso, former Real Madrid player, started his coaching career in the academy at Real Madrid. They've been keeping on his progress. At Leverkusen, the only question with Xabi Alonso has ever been, when is the right time for him to come to Madrid, and would he be ready? He's never been in a rush to take that step, but there's no doubt that he's always been the club's preferred candidate when the day comes.
When it comes to Carlo Ancelotti, Stevie, yesterday he made all the changes that they'd asked him here on the panel to make in this game. It still wasn't enough, though. Yeah. What did you make of it?
Well, the chemistry's just not right at Real Madrid, and whether they all get on off the field, I don't know. But at the end of the day, what's happening on the field, the makeup of the side doesn't work. And it doesn't work either when you have two players in particular, and I'm talking about Mbappe and Vinny Jr., who do not do anything pretty much other than when they've got the ball. And so when you're playing against a proper team, a good team, a real team, then all of those things come to the front. And the fact that they've managed somehow previous years, because of the individual brilliance they have, to rely on that for over too long a period, it's never going to end up working, really. And it didn't work the other night. They got outplayed in the first game completely. They got outplayed in the second game completely. They're lucky it was 2-1. It should have been more, in my opinion. And yeah, it's not a team. And they do need to bring somebody in that will change things, maybe change some players, the positions they play. Forget this playing Valverde at his right back. He's not a right back, you know. So all of these things, with what Ancelotti has had this season, he's not been able to piece it together. So they do need to make a change, in my opinion.
Who's getting the blame today, Alex? Mostly.
I mean, a lot of it is Ancelotti. A lot of it is the players, and it's divided between those two, because I think people do look at the fact that Ancelotti throughout the season hasn't managed to get this team to gel. No, it's not all his fault. Like I say, part of it is about players, the way they're performing. Part of it is about the way the squad has been built as well. And Ancelotti has called previously, both publicly and privately, he's called for reinforcements in certain positions in defence, in midfield, and it hasn't happened. You look at the squad, and there are some pretty clear weaknesses there, which have been exposed by injuries to key players this season. So part of it is about the squad building. Like I say, part of it is certainly about Ancelotti and some of the decisions that he's made in terms of the tactics and the selection, but also the players. Like I say, I mentioned the whistles from the Bernabeu crowd for Mbappe when he went off injured. I mean, overall, he's had a pretty good season, but there's no doubt in some of these key games now, he hasn't performed, he hasn't delivered. The same goes for Vinicius Jr., whose season overall has been a disappointment. So there's lots of blame, there's lots of it to go around. In terms of kind of who pays the price for that, of course, it tends to be the manager. The manager tends to be the first one to go.
It's a big reality check for Madrid, Nadim.
Yeah, absolutely is. And I'll be honest, when you hear all the talk about the comeback remontada, okay, everyone's starting to believe in it. It's Real Madrid. It's that white shirt, the Bernabeu. It's going to be so many moments like this have happened before. It's going to happen again. But then when you really take a step back, you see that Arsenal are just the better side. As Stevie said, they're the more complete side. So there's desire that comes into it as well. And I'll be honest, from my perspective, watching Real Madrid, it was hugely disappointing. And then you listen to some of the interviews afterwards, what Courtois was saying about people need to look at themselves and so on. And for me personally, it sounded like a group of players whereby people can sense the problem, but not everybody can address the problem, because maybe some of the problems that exist, people won't accept them. And there's a lot of finger pointing. And again, I look at them and you see someone like Rudiger, he's trying to be physical, trying to be aggressive. I personally think he could have been sent off for that stamp on Lewis Skelly. I think he could have been sent off. And you've got Bellingham going around there trying to be physically dominant. But then you've got a front two in, say, Bellingham and Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe, who will not lay a finger on anyone. So what is the identity in this moment? You need some goals. Is it going to be with the desire? Is it going to be with the flair? As it turned out yesterday, there was nothing. Because in reality, Arsenal overall were very comfortable. And who would have thought that would be the case in this season?
Yeah, it's not what we expect from Real Madrid. We don't expect this from them in the Champions League. This has been their competition, Shaka.
Well, it's not what we've come to expect of Real Madrid. And here's my issue with Real, or certainly this version of them. And well, first of all, I think the bigger story is Arsenal and how good they were for two legs. So let's not take away from their own performance. But let's remember, Real Madrid also went, 12 years between winning their 9th and 10th Champions League title, and then they just couldn't stop winning. And the narrative became, this is Real Madrid's competition. Things just happen for them in ways that it doesn't happen for anybody else or anywhere else. Arsenal are the only ones who believed otherwise, and again, credit to them for that. Now, when you look at how Real Madrid kind of made that jump and started winning these competitions, and while you had their mercurial star in Cristiano Ronaldo and everything that he did, only later on, only after he left, you understood the importance of a Karim Benzema. And as I look at this Real Madrid team, I just wonder if they're missing that kind of player, and not Benzema in person. And while maybe Vinny played the Ronaldo role last season, and you could argue that Rodrigo was the Benzema-esque kind of player, Rodrigo certainly couldn't do it for two in Kylian Mbappe and Vinicius Jr. And that, for me, is where the biggest imbalance comes. You don't have anybody, certainly in that front three or in however you decide to build your attack, that are willing to give of themselves in the way that the others need, in the way that Benzema did for Ronaldo. Again, Rodrigo, bless him, he couldn't do it for both Vinicius and Kylian Mbappe. And as a result, everything just kind of came apart at the seams, and it now looks like it needs a bigger rebuild. But now, in talking about that rebuild, you've got two players who I'm not sure are going anywhere else, and I'm not sure you can sacrifice two players to make up for them in that same way.
Nadim?
Yeah, I wanted to say as well, having tracked the Champions League throughout this whole season, like we see Real Madrid as the holders, and we think, well, let's look back at the campaign that they've just had. They played 14 games and they lost 6 of them. They conceded 22 goals. Like, we're talking about a team who many believed yesterday would just find a way to make things happen. I think this whole Champions League campaign, they've been a huge letdown. And I think for Ancelotti to not be able to fix that problem, I think it says a lot, because he's a manager who we would almost guarantee to believe can do it. You know, Ancelotti can do it. He has this new piece. He can do it. But overall, they were very, very poor throughout the entire campaign. And I think what we saw across those two legs, as Shaka said, Arsenal were great. And Arsenal are, this is one of the reasons why they're one of the favourites for the tournament now, because they are a complete side, like an Inter, like other sides that are still left in. But for Real Madrid, you look at those stats. How have Real Madrid lost 6 games in one Champions League campaign, but still people had a belief that they were going to do something? It's just not good enough.
Real Madrid are obviously confident of signing Trent Alexander-Arnold in the summer. Do you ever look at that as a player? Well, on the flip side of it, though, Steve, is there any way when you are the player, you look at what's going on and think, oh, hang on a minute, do I want to be there right now?
No, we're talking about Real Madrid here. We're talking about a side that, you know, when things are not going right, they will go out and spend money and change it. Mm-hmm. And they don't wait 2 and 3 and 4 seasons to see whether it needs doing. They make a decision and they do it. So I don't think Trent Alexander will have even lost any sleep over the fact that Real Madrid certainly aren't going to win the Champions League. If I'm Trent Alexander-Arnold, I'm thinking we're definitely going to be better next year because of this.
Because of me.
Well, and me.
As a player, I think it's better. It's tough to come into a team that's winning. You know, look at the conversations we've been having all season long about Kylian Mbappe coming into the reigning Spanish and European champions, and all of a sudden they aren't able to replicate that. All eyes fall on Kylian Mbappe. If you're Trent Alexander-Arnold, maybe you're breathing a sigh of relief that they don't go all the way, that they aren't all conquering.
Yes, so you can come in and save them.
That's right.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Alex Kirkland, you may or may not know, is actually an Arsenal superfan. In fact, just off shot, there's lots of posters all over his wall of Arsenal players over the years. And it is Arsenal against PSG next, and they're underdogs. Alex, do you buy that?
I don't know. No, underdogs, I don't think so. I think it's very evenly matched. I know a lot of people have been sort of blown away by how good PSG have been this season, and I have too. I think what Luis Enrique's done there has been sensational. I'm talking about Arsenal being a complete team. PSG are another complete team. But I think it's very evenly matched. I think there's very little between them. Two teams in more or less sort of the same kind of stage of their development, of their evolution. Two of the best coaches in world football. A lot of people might make PSG marginal favourites, but don't forget, I know the two teams have evolved, but Arsenal beat PSG earlier in the season, and I think it's going to be very, very tight. I don't think underdogs is the right word. I think it's much more evenly balanced than that.
So what you're saying is they're going to win it, Alex?
There's a chance. There's a chance. I wouldn't go that far. I didn't think they'd beat Real Madrid, despite everything we've said. But there's
I didn't know
they've got
Dad
a
was here
chance.
today.
Yes, so we'll find out, yes. Every team in the world wastes time when they're leading. It was a bit stupid of me to push him there. And of course, we all know that was the case. But can you let us in on the manual for ball boys, Nedum? Is there talk in those manuals of the dark arts and whether this is something that they're told to do?
Not necessarily. From when I was a ball boy, which is many moons ago now, it wasn't necessarily a multi-ball system either. So that ball was just, it was gone. But for where I was, that ball would regularly be, I was behind the goal. So if somebody missed, usually it's in Rose Ed. So there's not much I could do to slow the game down, to be honest. But it is funny looking at him sort of push that ball, throw the ball away. Because you do, the ball boy is sort of like a member of that whole Inter setup. You've got so many academy people there. You want Inter to win. So all of a sudden, here's your moment. Yeah, I'm going to keep hold of this ball. I'm going to frustrate him. And I think for the Bayern player, to push someone, it is a bit silly. But I'll be honest, I probably would have done the same thing. And I just find it funny as well that the ball boy is laying on the floor. Oh my God, did everybody see that? Oh my God, this is so wild. This is so dangerous. Oh my God, please. And all the Inter players come rushing out. Yeah, it's such a tiny moment that feels like a big moment, but then that's the passion, that's the joy, and that's football in itself, isn't it? So hopefully we can move on, and it's a nice little joke for the ball boy when he gets a little bit older.
Ruthless. Where's the former ball boy union? Ruthless, Nedum. I would have done the same myself.
Oh,
Ruthless.
I don't know many that wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I was no ball boy.
Sure. I can count on one hand the amount of people that wouldn't have done it.
Okay.
Right there, right then.
In that moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're getting it.
Yeah, well, Stanisic definitely knows his mistake. Virgil van Dijk has followed in the footsteps of Mohamed Salah and renewed his contract at Liverpool. The Dutch defender has signed a new 2-year contract. He'll now remain at Anfield until the summer of 2027. We knew it was coming, but now that it's done, got to be happy, Stevie.
No, fantastic. I mean, if there's one guy, if somebody was to say, OK, who's in charge at Liverpool, other than the manager? You'd say Virgil van Dijk. So the fact that he's still going to be in charge at the start of next season is absolutely fantastic.
It really is. It's great news for Liverpool, but not such great news for the rest of the teams in the Premier League, Nedum.
Yeah, I would agree. I think obviously Liverpool getting knocked out of the Champions League not too long ago, losing the League Cup final, there was a sense that there's still going to be huge celebration because they're winning the league, but it's not as safe, sweet as it could have been. But now here comes a new deal for Salah, here comes a new deal for Van Dijk. And as Stevie's saying, these are two of the most important players in Liverpool's Premier League history, two of the most important players in the last decade for Liverpool. So for them to be signed and for them to have so much love for the club as well, it's great business. And I've got to say as well, from my perspective, we sometimes talk about players in a contract year playing well and so on. I think Van Dijk and Salah have played so well that the leverage that they have, it almost feels like they could ask for whatever they wanted. And that's credit to them, given the fact that they're in there drifting towards their mid-30s. Some teams would say, well, you're a bit old, you're a bit this, you're a bit that. All of a sudden, the age doesn't matter because of how important they've been this season, how important they are for the football club. And Van Dijk as well, to look back at all the Premier League players across the years, I think he's somebody that could have played in any of those eras. And for me, he's one of the best to have ever done it. He'd be in my guaranteed Premier League centre-back partnership. Not sure who to put him alongside, but he is there. He's top. When he's at his absolute best, his calm nature, the fact that people don't really want to play against him, he can dictate tempo, he can be aggressive, can pop up with big goals, and best of all, he's a leader, and he leads that team to be as competitive as they have been in the last few years. So, yeah, credit to Liverpool for getting it done, and credit to Van Dijk for being so good that Liverpool had no option.
Sounds like he's pitching Nedum's Premier League power rankings there.
Oh.
Shaka,
Welcome
might get
to
a break.
it. Quite welcome to it.
What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, sometimes it's really difficult to judge how good a player is or has been when they're still playing. But there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that, and if you think of all the great Liverpool sides since the 60s, since the Ron Yateses and Ian St John's and Sir Roger Hunt, all the way through to now, Virgil van Dijk gets in the all-time 11. That's how good he is and how good he's been. So if anybody has any thoughts on where he sits in Liverpool's history, storied legendary history, he's in the best 11, in my opinion.
That is high praise indeed from Mr. Stevie Nicol. Now, speaking of players who've made a massive difference to their side in the Premier League, I don't know, Nadim, if we've had you on since we found out that Kevin De Bruyne won't be continuing at Man City past this summer. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, you've not had me on. It's still too soon to talk about it. I don't want to look at the screen. I don't want to look at it. Is it real? Is it still
get ready.
Oh, my God.
Because, yes, this is the moment. How you feel, what you thought, what you've got to say about it. Talk to us.
Yeah, I think the conversation was drifting towards the fact that he probably would be leaving in the summer. But when he comes out and makes that decision himself and he's thinking he's got to leave, and you can see the sadness in terms of how he's spoken about it, the words that he put down there. And then finally, you can sort of really appreciate how significant he has been. I think in the last, say, few months, he's not played as many games as he would like. He's not had the same impact that he would have liked. But you go back to when he first signed, and the general talk in England is that this is the 60 million is too much money. This guy will be a flop. He's no good. He's this, he's that. And he's going to be leaving Man City as one of the best midfielders in Premier League history. And he's such like a good guy for the football club. Somebody that has loved playing for Man City, has loved playing in the Premier League, has lifted so many trophies, had so many big moments. And yeah, I'll be honest, he's outside of players who I've played with or someone who's linked with the academy, he's my favourite Man City player of like my lifetime. And it's not even close. I think the quality that he has and the way that he plays the game, to give him his credit, the way that certain players do things, I think as a former player sometimes you look at it and think, could I have done that? And with De Bruyne, most of the time the answer is no. I wouldn't see it. I wouldn't be able to do it. But for him, it's natural. He stands out so far above so many. So, yeah, it's a shame that he's going to leave. But this is the way that football goes. This is the business of football. And for him, he just wants to play more football, I imagine. And as long as his family can go somewhere, they can settle, he can enjoy his football again, then he can enjoy the last few years of his career, which is, what I'd imagine most people would want to do after having the career that he's had. I think he'll be looking for some level of stability. If you can find that in MLS or somewhere else, then great. But the fact is that Kevin De Bruyne, no matter what age he's at, if he's a free agent in the summer, he will not be struggling for options. So I hope he picks the right place, somewhere where he can enjoy his football. And we can see him, as you say, do some of the things that we've seen him do across the last few years, but obviously just be in a different environment.
Do you think he could still play like in a Premier League team for him himself? Do you think he'd feel okay leaving City to go and play in another Premier League team still, Nadim?
Do you know what? That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure about that. I think he's ties to Manchester to City because he's been there so long. I think it's quite deep rooted. So where he would go would, be affected by his history. But the fact is, maybe once he's done this Premier League thing, he's won it, for how many times he's made history, win it 4 times in a row and so on. I don't think that desire to be in the Premier League as such is probably as big as it would have been 5, 6, 7 years ago. So maybe other teams in the Premier League could be interested in him. Firstly, could you afford him? And secondly, are people trying to recruit people who are drifting towards their mid-30s who maybe have had a few injuries in the last couple of years? I'm not so sure about that. But he's plenty capable, and I'm somebody that would never doubt him because when he's at his absolute best, as I say, he stands alone because the way that he plays the game is so different to everybody else.
Tottenham Hotspur in the semi-finals. We're waiting them. And on the other side of the bracket, it is Athletic Club hoping to make it to the final in their home stadium, taking on Manchester United. But are any of these semi-finalists in Shaka's power ranking?
It's a Champions League dominated, certainly top 4.
Elite.
I thought
Elite.
Arsenal deserved their number 1 ranking, beating Real Madrid. What was it, 5-1 over 2 legs? There's no question to that. Inter, Barca, PSG, top of the top 4, and then Newcastle have been on an absolute tear since winning the Carabao Cup. The Aston Villa are in. I want to say maybe for the first time. Certainly since
I want to say why. I want to say why.
Aston Villa have won 9 of their last 10 games in all competitions. Their only loss was to PSG in the Champions League. That's why Aston Villa are in.
Why Betis dropped out?
Betis drew on the weekend. They lost on the weekend, so they're out.
So to a semi-final and they're out.
Aston Villa get knocked out of Champions League and they're in, and Betis draw and they're out. How's that work?
Aston Villa won against PSG, no?
They got knocked out, Shaq.
Yeah, but didn't they win?
They got knocked out, Shaq.
Hold on. But Betis lose on the weekend, Aston Villa won in the week, so Villa should be out and Betis in?
So you're getting...
Betis lost on the weekend.
It's not about. It's about getting through.
Did Betis get through?
Did Villa get through?
Betis
No,
got
but,
through.
no, but you said it's about getting through. You said it's about getting through.
I tell you what we'll do.
You said Aston Villa.
Betis are through in the conference.
Aston Villa
forget about Betis.
Conference League.
Let's take
Aston
Betis.
Villa get
Elitist.
Hold on. Aston Villa get knocked out
Take Betis
by
out of it.
PSG, who are in the top 4,
So,
and that's supposed to be judged harsher than Betis losing in the league on the weekend. I
you
don't
get beat.
understand it.
You get beat. You get take Betis out of it. You get beat. You get beat. You don't get. You don't get promoted
Henry.
for getting beat.
Aston Villa have won 9 of their last 10 games. They're 1 loss. Nobody else certainly that you
So
could...
why weren't they in there before then?
Well, then-
if they were so good, why were they?
Well, then, you want to rewind the clock to
So
last
what,
week?
man?
I know, I didn't bring my time machine with me.
So
We can't
you
have that
wait.
conversation now.
So you actually wait until
We
they
can't
get
have that
knocked out
conversation
before
now.
you put them in.
Have it last week. Too late. You're a week late.
Why weren't
You're
they
a
in
week
last
late.
week?
You're a week late. I'm not arguing about last week. We talk about this week. They're in this week.
So you were waiting for them
Aston
to get
Villa are
knocked out.
in this week. You asked why Aston Villa are in. Aston Villa in.
I'm still asking why.
Aston Villa are in because they've won 9 of their last 10.
Sounds like he's reaching to me, Nadem.
They won 9. That's what was that a reach? They won
When was
9
the
of their
last
last
time?
10.
When was the last time Villa were in the top 10?
I don't know.
So that's what I'm saying.
What are we
You
talking
wait-
about?
You
What are we talking about last
you wait
week?
until they get that, and
Help.
then you put them in.
Help, Nadem.
Listen, Shaka, realistically, you just need to stand your ground, yeah? Because in reality, it only needs to make sense to you, okay? So take pride in that, it makes sense to
be
you.
fair.
There's nothing else to worry about. Everything's good.
To be fair, Nedum,
They won 9 of their last
he's
10.
the only one.
They
that it
won.
makes sense to.
They won. What's today?
As long as it's
Tuesday?
okay
They
to
won
you,
yesterday.
that's
Was
fine.
it yesterday or Tuesday? They
Yeah.
won whenever.
Don't even know what day it is, so how can you even pick a power ranking, Shaka?
It's Thursday.
I pity anybody who can look at that and go, yeah, he's spot on.
Oh, this is the best work yet.
Apologies to all the Real Betis fans out there. Welcome into the latest edition of Extra Time. We've got Shaka, we've got Stevie, and we've got Nadem with us as well, fresh from another one of Shaka's power rankings.
No arguing there,
Less
was
said
there?
about that, the better.
There was no arguing there.
Steve
You know I'm
Nichols'
right. You know
personal
I'm right,
assistant
Keith.
is first in, who says, seems like Real Madrid's magic took a wrong turn and ended up at Old Trafford tonight. Have to admit, that was something to witness, right? I have to say, I did think they've just done what Real Madrid couldn't do. Are we having the comparisons?
No.
Why couldn't Real Madrid do what Manchester United did, Stevie?
Well, because we were playing Arsenal, not Lyon. and Arsenal had 11 men as well, not 10. I think it's a bit of a stretch, right?
United tried. They tried to mess this up.
Oh,
didn't
did
they?
it?
They
Did
tried.
the best.
They were in control. Real Madrid were never in control. We have to say that. Real Madrid were never in control.
Any stage.
Manchester United were in total control. For some reason, decided to make a mess of it.
Okay.
Go on, Nadem.
If United and Spurs get to the final, who do we think wins that final? Genuine question.
I think it is a very fitting Europa League final. We actually had a bit of a conversation about this in the viewing room tonight, didn't we? Who do we think wins?
I've got no idea. No idea.
Right.
I've got no
I
idea.
don't know.
Do you have a feeling about it, Nathan?
Yeah, it would be crazy, wouldn't it? Because I think United would probably be favourites, which is as much of a red flag as you could ever imagine as well. You know, United being favourites against Spurs in a final, it's like, oh gosh, I could not tell you what would happen in that game at all.
To try and figure out who's going to win a game, there has to be certain elements from one team that outweigh all the elements the other team has. And when I talk about the elements, it's things you can rely on them doing. You can't rely on either of these teams doing anything.
I'm going to go Spurs.
Why?
Just because I thought that was a good performance against Frankfurt. And while you could have all kinds of criticisms about them all season long, rightly so, at least it produced a good performance against Frankfurt. Manchester United, you could have similarly complaints about them all season long, but that was kind of crazy.
And Big Ange's already told us they're going to win a trophy.
Exactly. How?
Spoiler alert.
There you go. Put your mortgage on Spurs right now, Stevie.
That made sense.
Let's see if they can get there first. OK. Stevie, you said you understood Amorim's decision to leave Onana out of the squad over the weekend to clear his head. Nadem, on the Gab and Jules show today, said the best way to get out of poor form is to keep playing. Shaka, as a goalkeeper, what do you think would have helped you more?
I thought Amorim made the right decision. There's no question that Onana is just number one. And Onana was going to play today. Never mind what kind of performance Bandier had over the weekend. Onana was going to play. And kind of give him a lot of the talk and the back and forth with Nemanja Matic. I thought it was a good idea. Just step away from it all. Don't bother to show up at the stadium. We'll figure it out on Thursday. I thought it was the right thing to do.
You know, the reason I said that was because I was interim coach at Notts County in England for a period. And the goalkeeper, I can't remember his name, let a goal in. The ball was coming down from the sky, came down, it went through his hands, hit him on the head and went in the goal. And we lost the game. Now, on my side was the fact that we didn't have another goalie really anyway. But I decided on the Monday morning, when he comes in, I'm going to pull him in and I'm going to tell him, you're starting next weekend, because we didn't have a game for a week. And so that meant that he would have a calm week knowing he was going to play.
And had your confidence.
And had my confidence. So on the Monday, I give him one of them, come in, and I could see it in his face. He thought I was going to chop him. And I just said, by the way, I said, look, you made a mistake, right? He went, yeah. I said, well, you know what? You're starting next game. So forget about it, have a good week of training and just make up for it. And the smile on his face, the look on his face, he floated back out of the dressing room. And he actually played well next week. So that's how I figured that was a great decision, because that's exactly how Onana would have seen it. He would have realised the manager's with him. He's given me the weekend off to prepare. I mean, what more do you want? Perfect.
You've got more in common with Amorim than you know.
Is that good?
Was that a compliment? I'm not. Never mind. No, let's just. I don't know.
That team I was coaching, I know how we felt. Same as United.
Nadem, is it sometimes harder to defend against 10 men in certain situations? Ask him for a friend.
Is he asking for a United friend? I think, to be honest, the alarming thing for me when Lyon went down to 10 today was the fact that Lyon didn't necessarily even part the bus. They were just moving the ball well. But I think good teams, and for a stretch, I thought Lyon were this team. Like, when you have a play less, you can just sort of give the numerical advantage to the opposition in a position that doesn't matter. You know, play like a 4-4-1 and have the other team like have one centre-back be free. The centre-back's not really going to affect you. So outside of that, it's still the same sort of like, it's a similar defensive structure. So I think at times maybe it can be harder if a team really wants to park a bus and, you know, make themselves really, really hard to break down, but then still have something of a threat on the break. But I was just alarmed by the fact that for United, like, they never really took control of the game with that advantage. Like, you need to be smart enough on the pitch and sort of have people on the sidelines who can give you little cues that will help you be in the ascendancy, start to create more chances, make them suffer. But in reality, for long periods, it never felt like Lyon was suffering. It felt like they were comfortable, which should never be the case in a game like that.
Last question, because we're running out of time tonight.
Oh.
Stevie, do you think Manchester United should give Amorim time, just like Arsenal did with Arteta?
Well, they should give him time. The problem is, you have to show signs of improvement somewhere down the line. And the question then becomes, how long do you get to show some improvement? Because that's kind of where he is at the moment. Since he's gone there, there has been absolutely no sign of any improvement whatsoever. So the question is, how long did the board give him some time to actually make a difference, regardless of how many windows it is? That's the tough question.
He's going to be around. He ain't going anywhere.
Well, he's only going to be around for longer because they can't afford.
They can't afford.
They
They
just
brought him in. They
But
have far larger problems than Amorim.
If they had money to spend, then his leash would be a lot shorter. But because of the situation, it's going to be longer.
Okay, that will do it for the latest edition of Extra Time. Thank you so much for sending in your questions. Thanks to Nedum, thanks to Shaka, and thanks to Stevie. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all over again.